Good morning. Morning. See, that wasn't said enthusiastically, because this subject does not flatter us. It calls us out. It touches the very pride that says, I am the one who makes this life go. I have been up, well, virtually all night with it, because it insists on being spoken plainly or not at all. And I mean exactly that. This is not comfortable. If you came for comfort, stay and you will receive it, but not the kind that strokes the ego. The comfort here is release from a weight you thought you had to carry. Why does your personal power feel like carrying the world on your back? Because the very moment you call it yours, you inherit its upkeep. You must generate it. You must protect it. You must prove it tomorrow after proving it today, and then prove it again next week, and then fear that someone stronger, smarter, younger will come along to take your place. That is the contract you sign when you claim ownership. Fatigue is written in the fine print. Anxiety is written in the fine print. The dread of loss is written in the fine print. And you do not need a prophet to tell you that. Your nerves have been telling you. Your sleep has been telling you. The tightness behind your eyes has been telling you. Now, before you brace yourself to defend your throne, hear this line and let it stand without defense. We are not taking power away from your life. We are taking the false owner out of it. In other words, we are not diminishing action, effectiveness, expression, achievement. We are removing the pressure of a private author. When power is personal, it exhausts you. When it is grace, it sustains you. Make a note of that. Write it somewhere you cannot escape it. When power is personal, it exhausts. When it is grace, it sustains. You may feel the instinct to argue. But surely some of it is mine, my effort, my plan, my edge. And here is the impossibility I must warn you of at the outset. If you set about to solve this as a debate, who owns the power, me or God, you will go in circles. The intellect is not the instrument for this. It can recite positions. It cannot touch essence. The answer must be realized, not reasoned into place. Or perhaps I should say, the moment you taste what is within, the argument evaporates of its own accord. So I ask you only this for now. Notice the strain that came the instant you began claiming authorship of today. Notice the fatigue that walked in the door with my power, my results, my survival. And then hold a little space, just a little, for the possibility that what you have been calling your power is, in truth, grace itself operating as your life, ready to carry you when you stop carrying it. Now let us look straight at the hidden thing. Not the big sins we confess in public, but the quiet axiom none of us question. There is a separate me, a private doer, who must make life work. That is the root beneath all the branches we call self-improvement. I must get power, build power, protect power. I must analyze, I must conjure, I must hold it together. And I must keep others from taking it. Do you hear it? Not the words alone, but the tremor behind the words. The world rests on that pronoun. I must. Who is this I? Not the name on your card, that is lettering. Not the face in the mirror, that is a changing picture. Who is the I that is trying to become powerful? Where did it receive life? Who maintains the heartbeat while you sleep? Who brings breath at 2 a.m. when all your planning is offline? Who opens the rosebud without a committee? Do you, by effort, move the planets or whisper to the tide? Then why, in the one place you call my life, do you imagine a separate author is required? Close your eyes for a moment. Don't think, just notice the rhythm in the chest. Did you start that? Are you maintaining it now by will? Now, notice the thought that just came to answer me. Where did it come from? You did not invent awareness. Awareness is what you are noticing through. Now, open your eyes and be honest. If you did not ignite life, if you are not maintaining the cosmos of your own body, why is your plan to run the rest of it any better? This is not psychology. This is identification. The exhausting life is built on one false premise: a separate me as the doer and owner. From that premise comes a pattern you know too well. A flash of inspiration, a burst of push, then depletion. Then guilt because you could not keep it up. Then a new vow, a new technique, a new schedule, another push, and another collapse. Inspiration, depletion, guilt, push again. And in between, fear that the stream will run dry and you will have nothing when the world asks again. Do you see that the stream is not dry? The sense of a private cup is what gets empty. Now the pivot. The secret is not more effort. The secret is right identification. You are not an effect trying to stir cause. You are cause appearing as individual life. I mean exactly that. Not a God person with superior ego, but consciousness itself, the one life, individualized. When identification is wrong, you spend your days trying to get power, to use it, to refill it, as if it were fuel in a can. When identification is right, action proceeds as expression of what already is. In other words, you do not draw from a bucket. The well arises and overflows as you. And please hear this, so there is no mistake. This is not an argument for passivity. It is the end of strain. Yielding the false doer does not eliminate action. It purifies it. It makes action precise, timely, accurate, unburdened by fear of loss, because there is no private owner to lose. The same tasks may be done, the same phone calls placed, the same child lifted, the same work offered, but without the tremor of mine. When the false owner steps aside, the real doer, which is grace, acts as your very being. Then power is not something to get or keep. It is what is, moving as you, and there is no one left to be exhausted by it. Now we come to the sentence you must not mishear. I and the Father are one. Not poetry, not comfort language. Principle. The principle that ends personal ownership at its root. If you will sit with it until it speaks in you, you will find that the weight drops, not because something external came to help, but because the premise of a private carrier dissolved. I mean exactly that. It is not a contract between two, me here, God there. It is oneness. Not two powers negotiating a truce. One power, one life, one being, appearing as individual expression. And please, let us be exact so we do not stumble over our own tongues. This does not mean the human sense of you. This bundle of habits, fears, and timelines becomes God and can now stride about commanding the universe. That is the old arrogance in holy clothes. That is the ego's counterfeit. It hears oneness and says, "Ah, then I am divine. Stand back while I demonstrate." No. Oneness reveals there is no separate demonstrator. The only power is God. That power is grace, and that grace is your life. Individualized, not privatized. In other words, the wave is not other than the ocean, yet it does not own the sea. The mind will try to split this. It will want an either/or. Either I have power or God has power. Either I do it or God does it. But the revelation is not a partnership of two doers. It is the disappearance of the second. I and the Father are one means the sense of a second nature, a second will, a second source has no reality. The lamp does not boast, I have light. The current is the light. Yet the light appears right where the lamp is. So personal sense says, I have power. Spiritual understanding says, power has me. Or more precisely, grace is functioning as me. Can you feel the turn? The verbs change. From I generate, I protect, I deploy, to it lives, it flows, it expresses. Not passivity, clarity. Not abdication, identification. Action remains, form appears, tasks continue. But the author is no longer a frightened, possessive me. The author is the living one, writing itself as this line of life we call you. Now the warning again, because this is where the counterfeit is smoothest. The ego will nod, agree with the words, and then quietly claim the mantle. It will say, yes, yes, oneness. Therefore, I can speak and mountains will move. And it will try to move them by strain, by will, by technique dressed as prayer. Do you see the old doer peeking through? Oneness is not a technique to empower a person. It is the end of the person as doer. It is the beholding that the one is being itself as you. So what needs doing is done because it is the doer and the deed. Take this as a clean formula and live with it for a season. Personal sense says, I have power. Spiritual sense says, power has me. Let that sentence be written on your mirror, in your purse, at your desk. Say it until it says you. Then watch as strain loosens its grip, because there are not two powers in competition. There is only grace, the one power, and it is your very life. Now comes the great reversal, and you must not leave this room without it settling into you. If power is yours, you must generate it. You must guard it. You must replenish it. You must fight to keep it from being taken. And you must fear its loss every hour. If power is grace, you do not generate it. You consent to it. You do not protect it. You witness it. You do not refill it. You rest in it. And there is no fear of loss, because what you did not create, you cannot lose. I mean exactly that. Let the sentences be clean and unarguable. You cannot get grace. You cannot hoard grace. You cannot spend grace. You cannot lose grace. You can only misidentify and miss it. In other words, you can stand as the false owner and therefore labor in vain. Or you can yield the false owner and find that grace was the quiet fact all along. The wave cannot store the ocean. The lamp cannot bank the current. The branch cannot run a savings account of sap. But let the connection be what it is, and life appears as fruit, as light, as motion, right where you stand. Now what is consent? Because this word has been used for everything from laziness to fatalism. Consent is not collapse. Consent is not quitting. Consent is not neglecting your duties and calling it faith. Consent is the relaxation of the personal will, the ceasing of authorship claims, the inner yes that allows right action to appear from the center rather than be pushed from the circumference. Consent is the loosening of the fist around outcomes so that principle may outline its own way. Consent is the quiet in which you can hear the next true step. Notice how strain tells on us. The moment you begin to force, to manipulate, to panic, you are acting as an isolated cause. The jaw sets, the breath shortens. You reach for 3 levers at once and call it leadership. You rehearse speeches you will never give and fight opponents who are not there. That weather in the nervous system is the siren saying, "You have left your identity. You are trying to make grace perform for a person." Stop. Return. The very strain is the proof of false ownership. The relief, when it comes, is not because problems vanished, but because authorship dissolved. Then action is simple again. 1 email, not 20. 1 phone call, not a campaign. 1 quiet no, not a defensive essay. Or, sometimes, no action at all, because you see there never was a demand upon you to improve what grace already is. Close your eyes for a moment. Don't try to do anything. Let the shoulders drop. Let the breath move of itself. Inside, say nothing clever. Simply notice. There is awareness here before any plan, before any defense. In that awareness, ask, not with words but with willingness, am I the doer, or is the doer being itself as me? If you are still, you will feel the transfer, the burden sliding off the private me, the activity continuing without the tremor of possession. That is consent. It is the seed of demonstration. Now be very sure of this, because we will take it up immediately. Surrender is not passivity. Yielding the false owner does not produce a vacuum. It unveils the real operator. Grace does not need your strain. It needs your consent. And in that consent, you will find that action remains, efficiency increases, effectiveness is restored, but the whip is gone. We must draw this line brightly, for many will confuse surrender with quitting and will fail to demonstrate. In our next step, we will make that distinction exact so that you may stand in peace and move in power without ever again pretending to be the owner of either. Now the fear rises, and we will not sidestep it. If it isn't my power, then why act at all? Why plan? Why work? Why lead? Good. Bring it out where it can be seen. That fear is the last stand of the personal owner. It believes that once you lay down the whip, the horse will not move. It imagines that only tension produces direction. But listen carefully. Grace does not eliminate action. It eliminates strain by removing the false doer. I mean exactly that. Action does not vanish. Authorship vanishes. Work does not stop. Worry stops. Planning does not die. Panic dies. Leadership does not disappear. The private driver disappears, and leadership becomes transparency to the one who leads. Now, here is the clean line. Passivity is personal avoidance. Surrender is spiritual obedience. Passivity says, I don't want to feel this, decide this, risk this. Let me hide and call it trust. Surrender says, I release my claim to authorship so that principle may outline its way, and I will walk it when it appears. Passivity is a human self ducking under the covers. Surrender is a window without curtains. In other words, passivity is refusal. Surrender is receptivity. One closes the ear, the other opens it. How will you know which you are doing? There are markers. Passivity feels dull, heavy, resentful. It postpones. It lives in later. It avoids the phone call and writes a philosophy about patience. It says, "We'll see," and means, "I refuse to look." Surrender feels quiet and alert at the same time. Present, oddly precise. There is less talk about 10 steps, and a single step appears, outlined from within, and it is taken without drumroll. Sometimes that step is an email with 3 lines. Sometimes that step is a firm no. Sometimes it is to walk down the hallway and apologize. Sometimes it is to sit utterly still for 15 minutes and let the storm spend itself. But notice, there is motion, there is decision, there is execution, without the tremor of possession. This is inspired initiative. Do not miss that word, inspired. Grace is intelligence. It is not a mood floating in space. It is the wisdom that formed cell and star, and it moves as discernment, as timing, as right sequence. Therefore, action under grace can be decisive without being tense, swift without being driven, bold without being combative. You will see it in your body, jaw loose, breath even, and in your results, fewer strokes, truer aim. The work is done, but it is not wrung from you. It is released through you. Quitting abdicates responsibility because the person is afraid. Surrender fulfills responsibility because identity is correct. Quitting says, "I won't." Surrender says, "Thy will," and then shows up. Quitting shrinks the field to self-protection. Surrender widens the field to God expression and meets the appointment of the hour exactly as outlined from within. We must not leave this as talk. To prove that grace acts not as theory but as cause, we will take it into the fields where you have felt most alone: supply, capacity, and healing. We will stop chasing effects and stand in source. And you will see that when authorship dissolves, fruit appears as naturally as oranges on a living tree. Now we will take it out of air and into orchard. Stand before an orange tree. The oranges are not the supply. They are the evidence that supply is present. The living thing that moves through root and trunk and branch, that unseen life, is the supply. Touch the orange if you like. It is sweet, it is good, but it is not the source. Pluck all the fruit and put it in barrels, and you still have not touched supply. Let the tree wither, and your barrels are a clock. Leave the tree rooted in life, and fruit will appear again in season without your strain, without your bargaining, without your marching around it with affirmations at midnight. I mean exactly that. Translate this to your day. Money is not your wealth. Opportunities are not your wealth. Clients, contracts, likes, followers, even ideas you can list on a slide. These are oranges. They are good fruit. Enjoy them, use them, feed families with them. But they are not the source. The life that produces right contacts, the intelligence that outlines right timing, the invisible law that draws form to function, that is supply. When you identify as a person trying to get fruit, you exhaust yourself in ladders and baskets. When you identify as the presence in which life is flowing, you watch fruit appear where it could not be coaxed before. Do you see the common error? We attempt to increase fruit while neglecting the realized cause. We pour anxiety on the soil and call it fertilizer. We tell ourselves that waking earlier and worrying longer will force a crop. We shake the branches and bruise what little is there. Then, when 2 oranges fall, we call it proof our fear worked and double the dosage. Nonsense. Worry is not fertilizer. It is a blight on the roots of right identification. The moment you claim authorship of the tree, you start planning how to be sun, rain, and sap. That is the weariness you have known. So the reversal. You are not a person standing in a field pleading with a tree. You are the place where grace appears as orchard. In other words, your very consciousness, rightly identified, is the activity of Source individualized. The life that is God expresses as your being, and in that realization, forms of supply show up as naturally as fruit in season. You do not get supply. You reveal it by ceasing to argue with what you already are. Now let the bridge be clear, because this is not limited to dollars and invoices. Strength is not an object to fetch. Confidence is not a vitamin to swallow. Capacity is not a container to fill. All of these, as you have tried to acquire them, have tired you because you were treating them as fruit. Strength is the life of grace acting as you. Confidence is the poise of grace, knowing itself as you. Capacity is the infinity of grace functioning without a private ceiling. When identification is right, these appear without boasting, without bravado, and without collapse afterward. The work gets done. The right doors open. The right words are given when you need them, and they are gone when you do not. And you stand there, not proud, not empty, transparent. Stop chasing effects. Realize the living source, and effects appear as naturally as fruit. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now we bring this home to the desk, the studio, the boardroom, the kitchen table. Personal power says, I must hold it together. Grace says, I am carried from within. Feel the difference. One tightens the jaw and counts the minutes. The other loosens the breath and counts on principle. One watches the clock and the faces in the room. The other watches the inner light and lets timing be given. When grace operates, you become effective without being driven. Power expresses, but no one owns it. I mean exactly that. What does this look like by 9 o'clock on a Tuesday? Decisions are cleaner. The hesitation, the rehearsal, the second-guessing drop away because you are no longer auditioning for approval. You are obeying an inner outline. You do not stack 10 options to perform your cleverness. You see the one next step and take it. Performative ambition dies down. There is no need to trumpet, to prove, to posture, because the need to be a personal source has been surrendered. And then, oddly, results quicken. Execution becomes timely. Fewer emails, truer sentences, shorter meetings, clearer agreements. The thing that needed doing seems to find its doer, right where you stand, without announcement, without strain, without afterward collapse. Here is the paradox. Outwardly, you may appear more powerful. People will say you have presence. They will ask where the confidence came from. They will call it charisma or gravitas. Inwardly, you feel less like a somebody and more like a window. You are not inflated, you are transparent. The stance is not, behold me, but behold grace. That is why it does not burn you out. The furnace is not in the ego. The fire is of the Lord, and it does not consume the bush. There are marks by which you can know grace is operating. A calm authority without aggression, voice even, eyes clear, no need to press. Firmness without hardening, spine is present, armor is absent. Compassion without collapse, heart is open, boundaries true. You do not rescue to soothe your anxiety, nor do you abandon to protect your image. You can say yes cleanly and no cleanly, without the apology that comes from private fear. You can hear dissent without the old rush of self-defense, because there is no private throne at risk. Do you see? This is leadership in its right order. Not the personality dominating the room, but presence ordering the room through one willing transparency. Creativity changes as well. No more forced storms of ideas to prove you are valuable. No more midnight hunts for originality. Inspiration arrives whole, or near enough, because you have stopped trying to be the author and started consenting to be the instrument. Sometimes it is a line of code that untangles the project. Sometimes it is a sentence that resolves the negotiation. Sometimes it is the simplest outline for a quarter that lands like a bell. And notice, you do not cling. The idea comes, serves, and you bless it as it goes. Another will be given when the hour requires. Because the giver is not fatigued. Now, let's make this viscerally practical. Close your eyes for a moment. Locate the words, "I must hold it together." Feel where they grip: throat, solar plexus, shoulders. That is the private owner bracing. Now, in the same quiet, not as a performance but as consent, let the words, "It is done," rise, not as magic but as identification. Grace is the doer. Grace is the deed. Grace is the day. Do you feel the transfer? From push to poise. From "I must" to "It is done." Do not stop there. Open your eyes and take the one step that is given from that poise. That is leadership. We will not deceive ourselves. There remains a last refuge where private ownership hides with great subtlety: the body and the personal story. As long as you believe you are contained in a body concept and obligated to a timeline of narratives, the old doer will sneak back in at the cellular level, claiming symptoms, defending history, organizing destiny. That concept must die, not the embodiment, but the false identification of it. And we will go there next. For now, take this sentence and live with it until it lives you. From "I must" to "It is done." Write it, mirror it, carry it. Then watch as capacity expands without boasting, creativity flows without forcing, and leadership stands without strain, because the one power is being itself as you. Now we come to the place where private ownership hides with its last disguise. It puts away the briefcase, it takes off the title, and it whispers, "Yes, yes, Grace, but this body is mine. My health, my energy, my nervous system, my trauma, my limitations." And the moment you agree, strain returns at the cellular level. You begin to supervise breath, to manage digestion, to bargain with sleep, to brace at every twinge as if fate were speaking directly to you. Hear me. Grace cannot be fully lived while identity is trapped in the body concept and the personal story. I mean exactly that. Let us be precise. What the senses call body is a concept, changeable, feared, defended. True embodiment is spiritual form, God manifest as individualized being. Scripture seems to argue with itself. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, and yet, "In my flesh shall I see God." The key is definition. Take flesh to mean concept. The mortal, changeable sense of body, this fluctuating picture the mind holds, cannot inherit the kingdom. But God, as spiritual form, revealed even as what appears here, is the seeing of God. My body is the temple of the living God. The temple is holy because of the indwelling, not because stone became sacred. In other words, body, as you touch it, is an ever-changing concept of that spiritual form. That concept must change. The form, which is life itself, is intact. Look at the development of your so-called body. Infant, child, youth, adult, exchange after exchange. Teeth come and go. Features alter. Strength rises, then seems to settle. Every 7 to 10 years, biology tells us, a near total exchange of cells. Which of these was you? The photograph in the drawer? The reflection in yesterday's mirror? Or today's? If the picture changes, the one who beholds it must be other than the picture. Right identification says, I am not the photograph. I am the life that presents the photograph. I am not a bundle of changing sensations. I am the consciousness in which these sensations are noticed. Now see how personal power clings in this arena. My health becomes a throne to defend. My energy, a supply to hoard. My nervous system, a tyrant to obey. My trauma, a passport you must present to enter every conversation. My limitations, the constitution of a tiny nation you are sworn to uphold. And under those banners, you legislate your days, what you may do, what you must fear, where you cannot go. You have mistaken a passing weather pattern for the sky itself. You have enthroned a narrative and called it nature. The daily transformation is simple and relentless. Concepts must die, not the body, not life, but the false concept of selfhood. I die daily is not tragedy. It is emancipation. Each time you relinquish an identity sentence, my weak back, my anxious wiring, my family's disease, that concept dies, and an improved concept appears as health, steadiness, freedom. Not by human magic, but because realization refashions the picture. Be willing to see form come and go, improve and improve again, because the life that is you is forever. You are not in body. Body is embraced in you. You are not compressed inside skin. Skin is an event inside awareness. And the story? The timeline you keep rehearsing as if it were scripture. Who hurt you? Who failed you? Who you failed? This is the longest shadow of ownership. It claims authorship of your today by narrating your yesterday. But grace lives in the I that precedes narration. Before the first sentence of your biography, I am. Meet that, and story loosens. Meet that, and symptoms have no throne. Meet that, and action arises without squeeze. Because the doer is not trying to repair a character. The doer is being itself as you. So the bridge. Before you rush to correct the body or edit the story, go within and meet I am. Not with phrases to bully the flesh, but with the recognition that you are life, not a tale about life. Cause, not a frightened effect. Then let the word become flesh, as a clearer, freer concept, because the one divine power is not waiting at the edge of your history. It is your very selfhood. Live there, and watch ownership lose its last hiding place. Now, before you move another finger to fix anything, let us turn. Close your eyes for a moment. Do not reach for a verse. Do not reach for an argument. Let the hands be still. Let the jaw soften. Let the breath go about its business without your supervision. Notice how quickly the mind runs outward, solving, planning, rehearsing. Gently, do not follow it. Let it run, and you stay. What is aware right now? Not the word awareness. What is aware? Before thought says I, what is here? Before a sensation is named comfortable or uncomfortable, what is present? If you do not answer with a sentence, but with noticing, a quiet becomes evident. Not a dead quiet, a living, awake presence. It is not in front of you or behind you. It is not in your head. It is not confined by your body. Rather, what you call body is noticed within it. Where does action arise from? Watch closely. Before the intention to move a hand, there is knowing. Before you reach for a solution, there is a stillness that already is. This is not passivity, it is source. Stay with it. Do not paint it with adjectives. Let the words I am form without sound. I am. Not I am something. Not I am powerful. Just I am. It is not a thought. It is the very being that sees thoughts come and go. It is unborrowed. It does not hurry to become. It does not defend itself. It is not anxious. Anxiety is a weather pattern that passes across it and leaves no dent. Now, be exact with me. This is not self-hypnosis. We are not inducing a mood. We are not suggesting a belief to override another belief. We are discovering the only power as the substance of your very consciousness. I and the Father are one, meaning this I am you are tasting is grace itself. God as your own being. You cannot manufacture it. You cannot improve it. You can only consent to notice it and cease pretending to be a separate owner beside it. I mean exactly that. Rest here for another breath. If thought arrives, let it arrive and go. Let silence say, I am, again and again, until the compulsion to grab fades. Out of this presence, a step may arise, simple, clean. Notice the difference. The step is given rather than squeezed. The email writes itself in 3 lines rather than 16. Or perhaps the step is to wait 10 minutes and let smoke clear. Either way, action is outlined from within, and strain is absent because authorship is not being claimed. Make some provision for this in your day. Before you open the inbox, close your eyes for 15 seconds and meet I am. Before you pick up the phone, meet I am. When the symptom whispers, when the clock shouts, when memory accuses, meet I am. Not as ritual, but as right identification. Power is discovered as presence. When you rest in I am, grace is revealed as what you are, and what needs doing is done because the doer is present. Now, we must not keep this on a cushion. We must carry it into heat, into conflict and deadlines, into illness and fear, and prove that where personal power used to strain, grace stands and supplies the right word, the right restraint, the right move. We will take it there next, and you will see the test become testimony. Now we go into heat. Not the cushion. The inbox with a thread in it. The meeting where the tone shifts and the eyes narrow. The symptom that spikes at 2 a.m. This is the hour when the private self lunges for the wheel. You know the signs before you think them. Jaw sets. Breath shortens. Fingers hover to type the strong paragraph. The mind begins its courtroom. And here the teaching becomes flesh, or remains a quotation. Right here, I mean exactly that. What then? Sequence. Simple, exact, non-negotiable. 1. Pause. A literal stop. You are not abandoning the scene. You are abandoning the false owner. 2. Recognize the grab. Name it within. I am trying to become cause again. Feel the fist. 3. Return to I am. Not as a phrase, as awareness. 15 seconds. One quiet breath, then another. Let the weather of adrenaline blow past a little while you remain. 4. Allow the next right step to appear. Not 10. 1. It will come as a word, or a restraint, or a silence. It will be clean. It will not taste of fear, hatred, or performance. Act from that. If it does not come, wait. Waiting from I am is action. In other words, pause, recognize, return, allow. Now, conflict. You are not battling a person, you are facing concepts. The moment you turn a man or woman into the problem, you have already dropped into effect trying to fix effect. The argument is not over bodies, it is over identification. Stand in I am and watch the faces turn back into your own selfhood appearing as many. Then grace acts without hatred and without weakness. Firm if firm is required, soft if soft is right, silent if silence clears the field. You will discover that the precise phrase appears that resolves, or the precise boundary appears that prevents damage, and it arrives without venom. That is how you know grace spoke. No residue of self-importance, no hangover of self-defense. And fear? Treat it as a bell, not a verdict. Fear signals that an effect is auditioning for the role of cause. You began to believe that a deadline, a diagnosis, a rumor, a memory had power. It does not. Power is one. Return to cause, return to I am, and watch fear lose its throne while the same facts rearrange around presence. Often nothing outward changes in that minute, and yet everything has changed. The doer has been unmasked. Then a door opens that was not visible under panic. Or no door opens, and yet the hour completes without loss, because you were not absent from your own life. Do not expect this to become easy by cleverness. It becomes natural by practice. Slow, repeated remembrance until ownership dissolves. Write the sequence somewhere you can't avoid it. Pause, recognize, return, allow. Live it under small pressure so it is yours under great pressure. Tonight, review the day and note the grabs. Not to blame, to learn. Tomorrow, take one heat and meet it correctly. This is the proof. When you stop grabbing control, grace supplies the right action. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now we come to the part you will either do or explain away. Everything we have said will remain poetry until you submit to discipline. Not severity, not grit. Discipline, ordered remembrance. Take one sentence and live with it until it lives you. The sentence is this: your power isn't yours. It is grace operating as you. I mean exactly that. Do not rush to new teachings, not this week, not this month. Make some, provision for studying it afterward. Seriously, practically, daily. Write it out by hand. Slow. Feel each word. Put it on the mirror where you will meet it in the morning when the old owner puts on its face. Put one on the refrigerator. Carry a copy in the purse or the wallet. Fold one into the book you carry. Keep one by the bed and one by the phone. When the day becomes personal and heavy, take it out. Read it. Then be still for 15 seconds. Not to hypnotize, to identify. In other words, use the sentence to turn from effect to cause, from person to presence, from strain to consent. You are not collecting sayings. You are re-educating consciousness. This is not affirmation for the mind. This is re-identification, training consciousness to stand as cause, not as effect. I and the Father are one. That is the meaning hiding inside the sentence. Say it quietly. Let it say you. Then proceed with the hour. Now, expect the unfolding to be true to form. At first, it will be words on paper, ink, sound in the head. Good, stay. Then it will become a comfort, a softening of breath when the jaw begins to set. Good, stay. Do not stop there. With continued turning, it becomes a principle, not a mood, something that orders the next step without argument. And if you will not abandon it when the inbox shouts, it ripens again into a lived state, where strain is recognized instantly as false ownership, and you reverse it as simply as closing a window against a draft. This is how truth becomes flesh, your normal standpoint. Set small hours to it, or perhaps I should say, set short, faithful pauses throughout the hours. Morning before you look out. Your power isn't yours. It is grace operating as you. And 2 quiet breaths of I am. Midday when the rush would claim you. Evening when the mind writes its noisy post-mortem. And anytime the symptom, the email, the memory tries to reinstall the little king, stop and meet the sentence. Less than a year on that one sentence? I don't know how you could spend less than a year and be done with it. It will feed you that long and longer. Do not polish it for company. Use it. In conflict, whisper it before you speak. In planning, write it at the top of the page. In weariness, lay it like a cool cloth on the forehead of the hour. When results appear, bless them, and do not attribute them to a clever you. Let gratitude fold back into the source. The decision lies with you. You may continue as the personal doer, carrying the world on a back that was never meant to bear it. Or you may consent to be the transparency through which grace acts, the window without curtains. Choose. Live the sentence until it lives you. And when it begins to live you, do not stop. Deepen it until ownership dissolves, and grace stands as your only standpoint, quiet, sure, effective. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.